The taxi pulled up to the curb in front of a modest suburban house that my husband, Michael, and I had strained to buy 3 years ago. Michael quickly opened the car door, helping a gaunt, frail woman step out. It was my mother-in-law, Elizabeth. I hadn't seen her in only 6 months, and her appearance had deteriorated shockingly. Terminal lung cancer with metastasis had drained the life from a woman who was once as strong as an oak. Now, she was nothing but skin and bones. Her eyes were sunken into dark sockets that reflected an infinite weariness. I hurried over to take the old suitcase from Michael's hands. A potent smell of medication and antiseptic hit me, stinging my nose. Michael looked at me, a certain evasion in his eyes, and his voice was urgent, as if someone were chasing him. He told me to help his mother get settled in her room so she could rest. He needed to talk to me about something important right away. I escorted my mother-in-law to the small downstairs bedroom I had thoroughly cleaned the day before. Elizabeth sat on the edge of the bed. Her breathing was a heavy, wheezing gasp, like the bellows of an old forge. She took my hand. Her rough, calloused skin brushed against mine. She said nothing, only looking at me with a strange expression, a mixture of pity and resignation. I returned to the living room. Michael was already there, adjusting his tie, and next to him stood a large, perfectly packed suitcase. My woman's intuition told me something was wrong. Michael approached, placing his hands on my shoulders, and in a grave, serious voice, he told me, "Sophia, I just received the board's decision this afternoon. The company is sending me to Germany for a year to oversee a key project. It is my only chance for a promotion to regional director." I froze, looking back and forth between the suitcase and his face. I stammered, "A year? Why so sudden? Mom just got here, sick as she is. You are planning to leave now?" Michael sighed. His face showed a distress that seemed meticulously rehearsed. He knew it was a sacrifice for me, but he told me to look at his mother. Terminal lung cancer. The treatment costs were a fortune every day. If he did not accept this assignment, where would they get the money for her medicine? For the radiation therapy? He was going for this house, for his mother, and for our future. His words fell upon me like a net of moral responsibility, preventing me from voicing any objection. He was right. His mother's illness was a bottomless pit that swallowed our money, and my salary as an office administrator barely covered our basic expenses. Michael took a debit card from his wallet and placed it in my hand. "The PIN is our wedding anniversary. Every month, the company will deposit my salary here. Use it to take care of Mom." He would try to save everything he could over there to send more. As his wife and her daughter-in-law, this was the moment he needed me most to take charge of everything at home. He asked if I would help him. I held the lightweight card in my hand, but my heart felt as heavy as a lead slab. I nodded in resignation. Michael gave me a quick hug. The cologne emanating from his shirt wasn't his usual scent of sweat and hard work. It had a distant, ostentatious touch. He had to go, or he would miss the red-eye flight. He was leaving everything in my hands. The sound of the suitcase wheels rolling across the tile floor, and then the engine of a cab driving away in the rain, were the last sounds I heard from him. The house fell into a terrifying silence. I stood paralyzed in the middle of the living room, feeling loneliness envelop me. I went back to my mother-in-law's room. Elizabeth was still sitting there, her back propped against the headboard, her clouded eyes fixed on the dark window. She did not ask where her son had gone, nor did she cry or try to stop him. She just let out a sigh, a sound as fragile as a dry leaf being stepped on. "He is gone, daughter," she said in a hoarse voice. I tried to hold back tears and went to cover her with the blanket. "Yes, he went on a business trip to earn money for your treatment. Do not worry, Mom. I am here to take care of you." Elizabeth turned to look at me. Her gaze no longer reflected weariness, but a compassion so deep it made me shudder. She whispered, "You poor thing, my child. He is gone. Consider him gone for good." At that moment, I thought she was referring to Michael's long trip. I could not have known that in that ambiguous phrase, she was referring to a definitive departure, that of the humanity of her own son, the one she had brought into the world. Outside, the rain continued to pour, washing away the last traces of Michael and leaving the sick old woman and me alone in that empty house. 3 months passed, feeling as long as 3 centuries. My life had been turned upside down, trapped in a relentless cycle. The office, the hospital, and the kitchen, perpetually smelling of medicine. My mother-in-law's health deteriorated faster than expected. Gut-wrenching coughing fits tormented her day and night, preventing me from getting a single full night's sleep. Every morning, I arrived at the office with dark circles under my eyes and my spirits crushed. My boss had already reprimanded me twice for being late and for my lack of focus. But what could I do when every morning I had to clean her, change her adult diapers, and feed her pureed meals before I could leave the house? The money on the card Michael left me barely amounted to $500 a month. He claimed part of his salary was being withheld for work insurance or some bureaucratic process. With $500, I could barely cover the diapers and some painkillers not covered by her insurance. All the expenses for food, bills, and daily life came from the small savings account I had been building since I was single. Every Sunday night, Michael would video call. It was a moment I both anticipated and dreaded. On the phone screen, Michael always appeared against a white wall or sometimes in the corner of a quiet coffee shop. He always complained. It was so cold there, and the work was so stressful. He had meetings late into the night. He had no time to even rest. I looked at his face on the screen, his skin rosy and his hair perfectly styled, a stark contrast to my own disheveled and gaunt appearance. I wanted to scream, to tell him about the sleepless nights patting his mother's back, the times she had vomited blood, leaving me terrified. But seeing his expression of a busy, important man, I swallowed my complaints. One night, while searching for my mother-in-law's old medical records to prepare for her next radiation session, I remembered that Michael had scanned and saved some documents on his old laptop, which he had left at home. It was a computer he rarely used, tucked away in a closet because he said it was too slow. I plugged it in, turned it on, and the screen lit up, displaying the family folders. I found the medical file and was about to email it to myself to print. But when I opened the Chrome browser, Michael's Google account was still logged in. Perhaps in the rush of his departure, or because he thought I was technologically illiterate, he had forgotten to sign out. A small notification popped up in the top right corner of the screen. Google Photos has synced 12 new photos. Out of curiosity, and also because I missed my husband, I clicked to see them. I thought they would be pictures of snow in Germany or of him with his foreign colleagues, but they were not. What I saw was the deep blue of the sea and sky, a radiant and stunning landscape. The most recent photo had been taken 2 hours ago. It showed a lavish seafood platter with a huge red lobster next to a glass of sparkling wine. The location tag read, "A 5-star resort in Miami." My heart lurched, and my hand on the mouse began to tremble. I scrolled to the next photo. It was the back of a young woman. She was wearing a bright orange bikini and lying on a lounge chair with a cocktail in her hand, posing in a way that oozed sensuality and enjoyment. Though it was only her back, I instantly recognized her light brown hair with large curls. It was Natalie, the former colleague from the marketing department whom Michael had introduced to me at the company Christmas party the previous year. At the time, he had said she was a very dynamic girl, that he considered her a little sister. I kept scrolling. Tears began to well up, blurring the images on the screen. The third photo was a shirtless selfie of Michael, wearing sunglasses, grinning from ear to ear. Behind him was an infinity pool, and the silhouette of that girl swimming. There was no Germany, no key project, no snow, no late nights working, only Miami, golden sun, blue sea, expensive seafood, and a mistress. While I was here, in this house that reeked of sickness and death, cleaning up after his dying mother, counting every penny to buy her soft food, he, the husband I trusted blindly, was using the money he claimed was being withheld to fund a lavish and debauched affair. I slammed the laptop shut. The sharp snap echoed in the silent night. The initial pain quickly gave way to a nausea that rose in my throat. I looked at my hands, the same hands that moments ago were washing a towel stained with my mother-in-law's phlegm. Now they seemed ridiculous, pathetic. My devotion, my trust, it had all been turned into a cruel joke by him. From the bedroom, my mother-in-law's cough sounded again, a guttural sound that tore at my soul. I stood up and wiped away my tears, not because I was no longer sad, but because I knew that from that moment on, I was no longer the docile, self-sacrificing wife of yesterday. A storm broke over the city at midnight, bringing an icy chill that seeped through the cracks of the poorly sealed windows. In the small room, steeped in the scent of medicine, my mother-in-law's breathing became a sharp whistle, like a dry leaf skittering across asphalt. Elizabeth had adamantly refused to go to the hospital to be put on a ventilator. She said she wanted to die at home, in her own bed, not surrounded by the cold, tangled tubes of an intensive care unit. I sat on the edge of the bed, wiping her forehead with a warm, damp cloth to dry the beads of cold sweat. The dim light from the nightstand lamp illuminated the ravaged, suffering face of a woman who had worked tirelessly her entire life. Suddenly, she opened her eyes. Her eyes, already clouded by illness, shone with a strange intensity, like an oil lamp burning brightest just before it goes out. She waved her bony hands in the air, searching for me. I took her hand. It was ice cold, all skin and bone, but she squeezed mine with incredible force. Her sharp nails dug into my skin, causing a sharp pain, but I dared not pull away. She looked at me, her lips moving, her ragged breath smelling of farewell. She whispered, her broken voice drowned out by the drumming of the rain on the roof. "Sophia, my child, Michael is a scoundrel. I know everything. I know where he is." My heart tightened. So she knew. The old woman, bedridden and seemingly detached from the world, knew the cruel truth I had just discovered. She had not said anything, not because she did not know, but because the pain was too great to put into words. Tears welled up in the wrinkles at the corners of her eyes, sliding down onto the pillow and dampening the fabric of my shirt. She struggled to sit up, pulling me closer, whispering in my ear as if she feared someone might hear, though only 2 lonely women remained in that house. "Good daughter, listen to what your mother is telling you. After you are finished with my funeral, go back to my hometown alone. Remember, go alone. Go to the old kitchen and dig under that big ceramic crock where we used to keep the pickles, in the corner. I have hidden something there for you." Her voice faded away, lost in the roar of thunder that shook the sky. The hand gripping mine suddenly went slack and fell limply to the side of the bed. Her heavy, labored breathing stopped completely. The room plunged into absolute silence, broken only by the sound of the torrential rain, as if it wanted to wash away all the suffering of a lifetime. Mom was gone. I sat there, motionless, looking at her now peaceful face. I did not scream or despair. I just felt an immense emptiness taking over my mind. The only person I had left in this house, my silent ally, was gone forever. Trembling, I picked up my phone and dialed Michael's number. 1 ring, 2 rings. By the 10th, no one answered. I called again and again. On the 5th try, he replied with a terse, cold text message. "I am in an important meeting with the German partners to close a deal. Cannot talk. How is Mom?" Reading the message, a bitter laugh escaped my lips as tears streamed down my face. A meeting with German partners at 3 a.m., Chicago time. Or was he busy having a meeting in bed with his mistress at some luxury resort in Miami? Rage choked me. I typed each letter, my fingers trembling on the touchscreen. "Mom passed away. Come home." The message was sent, and the read receipt appeared instantly, but the only response was a prolonged silence. Outside, the rain continued to pour, cold and indifferent, like the heart of the man I called my husband. I took my mother-in-law's cold hand again and whispered, "Mom, rest in peace. I will go back to the town. I will find what you hid. I will not let your sacrifice be in vain." Michael did not come back. It was something I had expected, but when it was confirmed, I felt a cold ash in my heart. He used the excuse that the project was in a critical phase and that if he left now, he would have to pay a multi-million-dollar penalty. He promised to make it up to me later. At the funeral, my cell phone was solemnly placed next to Elizabeth's photograph. The screen showed a video call from Michael. He appeared in an immaculate black suit, his face contorted in grief, weeping dramatically through the screen. He cried out, "Mom, I am a terrible son. I could not make it back in time to see you one last time. Mother from heaven, bless me so that I may succeed and honor your memory as you deserve. The relatives and neighbors who came to offer condolences, seeing the scene, clucked their tongues in sympathy. They whispered among themselves, "Poor Michael, working so far away, he could not even come back for his own mother's burial, but at least he said his goodbyes. You can see he has a good heart. Some even came over to comfort me. Be strong and handle everything for him. He left for the good of the family." I stood there, bowing my head in thanks, but inside, I felt absolute contempt. I looked at the face distorted by fake grief on the screen and remembered the photos of him laughing by the pool with his mistress. His performance was so brilliant that if I did not know the truth, perhaps even I would have been moved. But now, those virtual tears only made me sick. I handled everything alone, from the funeral arrangements to the cremation and greeting the guests. I moved like a shadow through the funeral home, unable to shed a single tear in public. My tears had already dried up inside during the months of caring for my mother-in-law. After the cremation, I took the urn with the ashes and Elizabeth's portrait and headed to her hometown. According to her last wishes, she wanted to be laid to rest there. Michael had sent me a message telling me to leave the ashes in a city columbarium to make visiting more convenient. I flatly refused. I knew she wanted to go home, to the place where she was born and raised, the place where she had buried the secret of her entire life. The bus rattled along, carrying me away from the noisy, polluted city toward the quiet but melancholic Illinois countryside. My mother-in-law's old one-story house stood at the end of a reddish dirt road. The weeds had grown so high, they almost concealed the entrance. The rusted iron gate creaked pitifully as I pushed it open. A smell of dampness and mustiness greeted me. I placed the urn with her ashes on the small, dust-covered mantel. I lit a candle. The smoke swirled in the silent space, creating an atmosphere of sadness and solitude. That night, I spread a mat on the floor, right below my mother-in-law's altar, listening to the crickets chirping in the yard and the wind whistling through the cracks of a broken window. I could not sleep. Elizabeth's gaze in the photograph seemed to watch me, both stern and pleading. Her last words on that rainy night echoed in my ears. Under the ceramic crock where we kept the pickles, in the corner of the kitchen, I lay there with my eyes wide open, staring at the water stains on the ceiling, waiting for dawn to unveil the last secret my poor mother-in-law had left me. I felt completely alone, but strangely, I was not afraid. In that desolate place, next to the ashes of a dead woman, I felt safer than in my modern city apartment, where lies and betrayal hid beneath the guise of a happy family. Just as dawn broke, with dew still blanketing the yard, I got up, took a small shovel I found in the shed, and headed to the old kitchen, a small building separate from the main house. It had been abandoned for years. Cobwebs covered the entrance, and a strong smell of dampness and cold ash washed over me. In a corner, just as my mother-in-law had said, was a large, heavy ceramic crock covered in the dust of time. It was the crock she used for brining pickles. With some effort, I pushed the crock aside, revealing a packed dirt floor, damp and uneven. My heart pounded. I started to dig. The surface was hard, but as I went deeper, the soil became softer. About 2 feet down, the shovel hit something hard, making a faint metallic sound. I set the shovel aside and used my hands to clear away the dirt. It was a rusty metal tin, the kind of Danish butter cookie tin that people used to gift each other for Christmas decades ago. The tin was carefully wrapped in several layers of thick plastic to protect it from moisture. Trembling, I carried it out to the yard, into the sunlight, to open it. The lid was sealed with rust, and I had to use the tip of the shovel to pry it open. Inside, there was no gold or jewelry as I had imagined, only a savings passbook from a small community bank and a sealed, yellowed envelope. I picked up the savings passbook and opened it to the first page. The number written there stunned me. I almost dropped it. $150,000. I rubbed my eyes and looked again, counting the zeros carefully. Yes, $150,000. The last deposit had been recorded 5 years ago. I could not believe my eyes. My mother-in-law, a woman who had spent her life working the land, who dressed so frugally she could not bring herself to throw away a shirt with frayed shoulders. Where had she gotten this enormous amount of money? Memories flooded back. About 5 years ago, an interstate highway project had passed through the town, and a large portion of my mother-in-law's land had been acquired through eminent domain. At the time, Michael had asked her about the compensation, but she had vaguely said it was just a few $1,000s, which she had put in the bank for her old age and future medical needs. Michael had believed her, thinking the land in that small town was worthless. He never imagined that patch of dirt held so much value. Why did she hide it from Michael? Why did she live in poverty, saving every penny, even when she was gravely ill, without daring to use that money for better treatment? I looked at the passbook and then at the sealed envelope still in the tin. Perhaps the answer was in there. Elizabeth had hidden that money for 5 years without saying a word to her only son. She preferred to suffer, to endure the pain, but she refused to give that money to Michael. A profound sadness washed over me. She had seen her son's true nature long ago. She knew Michael was greedy, vain, and unreliable. If that money fell into his hands, he would surely squander it on reckless schemes or a life of excess. She did not save it out of avarice, but to leave a lifeline, a final guarantee not for him, but for me, the daughter-in-law she trusted. With trembling hands, I picked up the yellowed envelope. The glue had dried over time, and it opened easily. Inside was a document folded into quarters, a faded brown color, and a handwritten letter in purple ink. The handwriting was shaky but still legible. I unfolded the document first. It was an adoption certificate issued by the county clerk's office in 198X. The red seal, though faded, still had enough force to deliver a mortal blow to my mind. Names of adoptive parents: Matthew Thompson, deceased, and Elizabeth Thompson. Name of adopted child: Michael Thompson. Date of birth: August 15, 198X. Reason for adoption: infant abandoned at the town clinic. The world seemed to spin around me. Michael was not my mother-in-law's biological son. He was an abandoned child whom Elizabeth had taken in and raised. This devastating secret had been buried for over 30 years, so deeply that not even Michael himself knew. I quickly opened the handwritten letter. It was a letter from Elizabeth without a specific recipient. It seemed written for her own conscience, or for Michael's biological parents, should they ever appear, to those who gave birth to Michael. I found him at the doors of the clinic on a stormy night. He was barely 3 days old, his umbilical cord still attached. He was crying inconsolably from hunger and cold. My husband and I could not have children, so we saw him as a gift from heaven and decided to name him Michael. We swore to bury this secret so he could grow up in peace like any other child, never feeling the stigma of abandonment. I have dedicated my life to loving him, to caring for him, hoping he would grow into a good man. But perhaps blood is thicker than water. The older he got, the more distant, calculating, and selfish he became. My heart aches, but I still love him because he is the only son I have. Sophia, if you are reading this, it means I am already gone. I am leaving this money to you. I know you have suffered greatly because of him. Michael is not of my blood, but you have become the daughter I value most. I do not want you to be harmed. If he treats you well, give him a part. But if he behaves like a miserable wretch, it is all yours. Consider it compensation for the youth you have wasted. My tears fell onto the fragile paper. Every word from my mother-in-law was like a knife in my heart, but at the same time, it was a balm that healed my wounds. She had prepared for everything. She had looked out for me even from beyond the grave. She left me not just money, but the truth and the power to choose. The maternal love I had so admired in her for Michael was built on the infinite kindness of a stranger. She had loved her adopted son more than her own life, but in return, she received only ingratitude and coldness. I folded the letter and the certificate, placing them carefully in my purse. This truth was my weapon and my shield in the battle that was to come against my despicable husband. The secret of Michael's origin and the savings passbook with $150,000 were like a red-hot coal that both burned my soul and forged in me a will of steel. My phone vibrated in my pocket. A new message. I opened it. On the screen was the name, My Love, a name I had not yet changed, a bitter irony in my current situation. Michael had sent a photo of an endless white sand beach with a cheerful message. This weekend, the partners invited me to a resort in Germany. The scenery is beautiful. I wish you were here. At the end of the year, when the project is finished, they will give me a big bonus. I will make it up to you for everything, honey. I zoomed in on the photo, examining every detail. He thought I was a naive woman who knew nothing beyond the kitchen stove, easy to deceive. But he was wrong. In the bottom right corner of the photo, reflected in the glass of a round table, was the silhouette of Natalie, sitting with her legs crossed, holding a turquoise-colored cocktail. And in the distance, I could make out the clock tower characteristic of a famous Miami resort I had always dreamed of visiting, but which Michael always dismissed as too expensive. Germany. He was putting on a clumsy play to hide his life of luxury, built on his wife's sweat and tears. I took a deep breath, suppressing the anger rising in my throat. This was not the time for a jealous scene or to unmask him. I needed him to come back immediately, and the only thing that could lure a greedy man from his den of pleasure was money. I typed a reply, each word carefully weighed, like a hunter setting a trap. I am in your mom's town dealing with her affairs. Today, while cleaning the house, I found a metal box that Mom had hidden under the kitchen floor. Inside, there is a will, deeds, and some very important documents about your origin that she never mentioned. It looks like she left a very large inheritance. You should come back as soon as possible to sign the papers. Otherwise, I do not know how to handle this with the county office. Barely 2 minutes after I sent the message, my phone rang nonstop. It was Michael. I let it ring 3 times before answering, keeping my voice calm with a touch of feigned exhaustion. Yes, Michael. On the other end of the line, Michael's voice was agitated, unable to hide his excitement. What did you say? What box? What inheritance? Mom had no money to leave anything. I answered in a monotone voice. I am not sure, but I saw property deeds, a bunch of papers. The clerk at the county office says it is very important and that the presence of the only son is required to resolve it. If you do not come, they will not let me touch anything. Michael was silent for a second. Then his tone changed instantly. His voice became affectionate and urgent to a point that sounded false. Okay. I will try to ask my boss for permission to come back for a few days. Do not show anything to anyone, and do not sign anything. Understood? Wait for me to get there. I hung up the phone. A cold smile formed on my lips. He had taken the bait. The scent of money and curiosity about the inheritance had triumphed over the charms of his mistress and the beaches of Miami. 2 days later, Michael appeared at the door of our suburban house. He was dragging his designer suitcase and entered with an air of exhaustion, feigning the fatigue of a long journey from Europe. In reality, he had only flown 2 hours from Miami. The moment he saw me, he did not ask how I was, nor did he bother to light a candle for his mother at the small altar I had improvised. The first question that came out of his mouth, as his eyes greedily scanned the room, was, "Where is the metal box and the papers Mom left? Show them to me now." I was sitting on the sofa, fiddling with a cup of cold tea, calmly observing the man I once called my husband. Only a few days had passed, but he still looked impeccable, with a sun-kissed tan that contrasted sharply with my own haggard and exhausted appearance after the funeral. I put the cup down on the table and pushed a thick stack of papers toward him. Michael pounced on them like a hungry beast, but as he opened them, the greedy smile on his face vanished, replaced by astonishment and disbelief. Inside, there were no deeds or wills, but a pile of hospital bills, receipts for medication, funeral expenses, and cremation costs. I had stapled them all together neatly. The total came to $22,000. Michael looked up, glaring at me. "What is this? What are you trying to pull?" I looked him straight in the eye, my voice firm. "These are all the expenses for Mom's treatment for the last 3 months and the cost of the funeral. I had to empty my savings account and borrow money from friends to cover everything. You are her only son, and the one with the good job abroad. You have to pay this amount to settle the debts. Then we can talk about the inheritance." Michael threw the bills on the table, his face flushing red. "Are you crazy? I just got here." "I have not been paid for the project yet. Where am I supposed to get that much cash right now? Besides, Mom was in a public hospital. How could it be so expensive? Medications outside the formulary, specific treatments. Did you think they were cheap? I growled, the resentment that had been building for so long about to erupt. While you were vacationing in your Germany, I had to scrape together money from everywhere so Mom could pass away in peace. You have not contributed a single cent or a single day of care, and now the first thing you ask about is the inheritance. Michael was caught. His gaze became evasive. He softened his tone, trying to reclaim his image as a responsible husband. I know you had a tough time, but we will sort out the money. The important thing now is Mom's will. I need to know what she left so I can take care of everything properly. Give me the real box. I saw through his dark soul. He had no intention of paying the debts. He just wanted to take whatever was left. His greed and indifference were now laid bare, without the cloak of respectability he used to wear. The box and the important documents are in a safe in her hometown. I stood up, brushing off my sleeves as if to remove some invisible dirt. If you want to see them, you will have to come with me. There, before Mom's spirit, we will talk things out clearly. Michael frowned, annoyed at having to travel again, but his greed won. He nodded. Fine, let's go. I need to light a candle for Mom, too. What a hypocritical thing to say. He was not going back for his mother. He was going back because he believed a treasure was hidden under the roof of that humble house. The house in the small town greeted us with a sepulchral silence. The afternoon sun cast long, uneven patches of light across the old tile floor, dust motes dancing in the air, thick with the scent of time. I led Michael to the back room, where I had placed a small safe I had just bought to store the important evidence. Michael stood behind me, his breathing shallow and anxious. I turned the combination dial. The lock clicked open. I took out the yellowed adoption certificate and my mother-in-law's handwritten letter and placed them on the wooden table in the center of the room. Look, this is what Mom wanted you to know. Michael picked up the paper. At first his expression was one of curiosity, but soon his hands began to tremble violently. His face drained of color, going from red to a deathly pale. He read the word adoptive over and over. He stammered, unable to form a coherent sentence. What? What is this? This is a joke. This paper is fake. I calmly poured a glass of water, my voice cold. It is a document with the official seal of the county clerk's office from that time. Look at it closely. Mom kept this secret for over 30 years. You are not her biological son. You are a baby who was abandoned at the clinic, and she took you in. Impossible. You are lying, Michael shouted, crumpling the paper in his hand. I am her only son. She spoiled me rotten. How could I be adopted? It is precisely because she loved you more than her own flesh and blood that she hid it from you your whole life. I looked him straight in the eye, my gaze sharp. But how did you repay her? You abandoned her on her deathbed to go party with your mistress. You let her die alone. Michael froze. His initial aggression vanished in the face of the overwhelming secret and the raw truth I had just revealed. He collapsed into a chair, clutching his head, his face a mask of confusion. His pride as the only son, the authority he had always assumed to decide everything in the family, crumbled in an instant. I delivered my final blow. I took out a will I had drafted myself, based on my mother-in-law's instructions and with legal advice on inheritance rights, and placed it in front of him. Mom knew you were not her blood, and seeing your behavior, she wrote down her last wishes. This old house and the land, she leaves to me as compensation for taking care of her. As for you, I paused, watching his expression. According to the law, an adopted son has the right to inherit, but he must also assume the deceased's debts. That $22,000 debt from the hospital, plus the loan Mom took from the bank last year to fix the house, which has not been paid off yet, you will have to assume half of it. Michael's head snapped up, his forehead beaded with sweat. He was already drowning in debt from gambling and from supporting Natalie. Hearing that he had to take on more debt, he turned pale with fear. This rundown house is worthless, and you expect me to take on the debts, he shouted, as calculations of profit and loss swirled in his head. Are you trying to set me up? I am not setting you up. I am offering you a way out. I took the divorce papers, already signed by me, out of my bag. Let's get a divorce. I will keep this house and assume the entire $22,000 debt. In return, you sign the papers. We will have no more ties, no shared assets or debts. You will be free, without burdens, without the responsibility of honoring someone you share no blood with. Michael grabbed the divorce papers, examining each clause. His gaze flickered, calculation reflected in every line on his face. He was weighing his options. On one hand, a debt of over $22,000, responsibility for a deceased adoptive mother, and a townhouse he considered useless. On the other, freedom, shedding the burden that I and this family had become so he could go off with his young, attractive mistress. He cleared his throat, trying to sound magnanimous, but he could not hide his relief. Are you sure? You will take on the entire hospital debt and never ask me for alimony or anything else? I am sure, I replied, my voice firm and devoid of emotion. I just want this house as a place to honor Mom. You go your own way. Michael smirked, the smile of someone who believes he has just shed an enormous weight. He took out a pen and signed the divorce papers. His signature was quick and decisive, as if severing 15 years of marriage without the slightest hint of nostalgia. As you wish. If you like dealing with problems, that is on you. I have signed. From now on, we go our separate ways. What is mine, and the debts are yours too. He tossed the papers toward me with a triumphant air. I am giving you the house. I have no interest in this godforsaken hole. Thank you, I said, my tone strangely calm. You can leave now, and never come back. I held the divorce papers in my hand as tears fell silently. I was not crying for the end of my marriage. I was crying for my mother-in-law. She was right. She had seen through the dark soul of her adopted son. If I had not listened to her, if I had softened and given him the passbook from the start, I would be on the street now, with nothing and drowning in debt. He, for his immediate gratification and his desire for fleeting pleasures, had lost the most fundamental values: filial love, marital respect, and a fortune he so desperately craved. I pulled another stack of papers from the outer pocket of my purse, thick and neatly stapled, and gently tossed it to Michael. Wait, do not leave so quickly. We have one last parting gift to sort out. Michael frowned with suspicion as he picked up the documents. He opened the first page, and instantly his triumphant smile froze and shattered. They were the detailed statements for his credit card and the bank transaction history for the last 3 months. Every figure, every party destination was clearly marked in red. Where did you get this? Michael's voice cracked. His hands began to shake as he flipped through the pages. I answered calmly, my voice like ice. Did you think I was a fool who only knew her way around a kitchen? While Mom was dying, you were using the credit card to buy a Hermes bag for your mistress, pay for 5-star hotels in Miami, and constantly withdraw cash from ATMs near casinos. In total, you spent and racked up debts under the guise of business expenses for over $30,000. Michael turned white. Sweat poured down his face. He tried to defend himself, trying to salvage what little dignity he had left. So what? It is money I earned. I can spend it how I want. Besides, we were married. You are responsible for half of that debt too. You are wrong. I cut him off, my voice like steel. Read the 3rd clause of the divorce agreement you just signed. Both parties declare they have no shared debts. Any debt incurred in the name of one party or spent for personal purposes will be the sole responsibility of that party. Michael was stunned. He quickly pulled the agreement from his pocket to reread it. In his haste to get rid of the house debt and hospital bills, he had not bothered to read the fine print. I stepped closer to him, staring into his panic-stricken eyes. All the money you spent on your mistress and on gambling has been proven to be for personal purposes, not for the family's needs. I consulted with a lawyer. Now, not only have you lost the inheritance, but you will have to carry a debt of over $30,000 all by yourself. Congratulations. You have the freedom you wanted so badly. Michael stood motionless. The paper in his hand fell to the floor. He opened his mouth to say something, but no words came out. The trap his own greed and arrogance had set had snapped shut on him, trapping him in a brutal reality he had never foreseen. 2 days later, after the divorce was finalized, I received a call from an unknown number. On the other end, a shaky, hesitant female voice, very different from the arrogant tone in the photos I had seen. It was Natalie, Michael's mistress. She wanted to meet me in a discreet coffee shop in a quiet alley. She said she had something life or death to discuss with me about Michael. When I arrived, Natalie was already there. She was hunched inside an oversized coat, her subtle makeup failing to hide her haggard look and the deep, dark circles under her eyes. When she saw me, she looked down, wringing her hands nervously. She looked like a drowned, helpless kitten, not the queen who had stolen another woman's husband. I sat down across from her and got straight to the point. "What do you want?" "If you have come to show off your trophy, you are too late. I have already gifted him to you." Natalie looked up, her eyes red and filled with tears. She shook her head. "No, it is not that, Sophia. I want to tell you the truth. I am not pregnant. It was a lie. It was all a charade to force Michael to marry me and get money out of him." Although I had suspected it, hearing it from her own lips sent a chill down my spine at the terrifying calculus of human beings. I smiled bitterly. "Oh, really? And now that he is broke and drowning in debt, since there is nothing left to get, you are trying to back out?" "No." Natalie nodded frantically, tears streaming down her cheeks. "I know I was wrong. I thought he was rich, but he turned out to be just a fraud, living off the money he got from you and your family. Now, some loan sharks are after him for gambling debts. I am afraid it will splash onto me. I want to leave him, but he will not let me go. He is threatening to post intimate photos of me if I leave." She took a deep breath, trying to calm herself, and lowered her voice, looking around cautiously. "Sophia, I know Michael is planning to hurt you. He is working with a sleazy lawyer to sue you for fraud and for abusing his mother. He has faked messages and manipulated photos to discredit you so he can claim the inheritance and force you to share his debts." I gripped the handle of my purse tightly. Rage consumed me. Michael had truly lost all humanity. After deceiving me for years, he now wanted to corner me with the vilest tactics. Natalie slid a piece of paper across the table with a bank account number on it. "I have proof. I have secretly recorded his calls with the lawyer, and I know the password to his computer where he keeps all his dirty laundry. I will sell you all the evidence for $3.00. I need the money to pay off a debt and start over somewhere else. With this, he will not be able to do anything to you." I looked at the young woman before me with a mixture of bitterness and pity. She was also a victim of her own pragmatism and superficiality, trapped in a spiral of money, and now she had to betray her lover to escape. $3,000 was not a small amount, but compared to my safety and honor, it was worth it. "All right," I replied dryly, "but first I need to see the merchandise. If the information is valid, the money will be in your account instantly." Trembling, Natalie connected a small black flash drive to my laptop. She moved quickly, as if trying to get rid of the burden as soon as possible. On the screen, several folders with strange names appeared. Natalie opened them one by one. First, the call recordings. Michael's voice, clear and full of resentment. "My wife is an idiot. A couple of threats and she will get scared. Prepare the lawsuit for abusing my mother to death. Add the photos I doctored the other day. I have to get that house back one way or another, or the loan sharks will skin me alive." My blood boiled. I had shared my life, sacrificed everything for this man, and to him, I was just a pawn, a fool to be used and trampled on. Then came the files of sick chats with other women, not just Natalie. But what shocked me the most was the last folder. It contained screenshots and an Excel file detailing his online gambling activities. Transfers of thousands of dollars every night, bets on international sites. Natalie pointed to a picture of a company seal. "This is the most important thing. He created a shell company and used this seal to forge contracts and embezzle funds from the company where he works. He laundered the money through virtual casinos. I heard him say he has already stolen over $100,000. A shiver ran down my spine. Michael was not just a bad husband and an ungrateful son. He was a full-blown, white-collar criminal. He had sunk so deep into the mire that now he wanted to drag me down with him. I closed the laptop, took out the flash drive, and clutched it in my hand. It was small, but it felt as heavy as a ton. It contained the entire sordid truth of Michael's life. It was the sword of justice I needed to put an end to his plans. I took out my phone and transferred the $3,000 to Natalie. Seeing the confirmation message, her face relaxed slightly, but her eyes were still filled with fear. "Thank you. I am leaving. Be careful. He is like a cornered, rabid dog now. He is capable of anything." Natalie grabbed her bag, pulled her hood over her head, and quickly disappeared into the crowd. I was left alone, drinking a bitter, cold coffee, feeling a mix of disgust and compassion for myself, for my late mother-in-law, and even for Michael. He had destroyed his own life with his greed and desires. Now, with this flash drive in my possession, I was no longer the passive victim. Back home, I got to work finding the last piece of the puzzle. According to Natalie, Michael had a secret compartment behind the bookshelf in his old home office. I called a locksmith, telling him I had lost the key. After nearly an hour, he managed to open the complex electronic lock. Inside was a tightly shut metal box. I used a crowbar to force it open. Inside was a document. It was a will, but not my mother-in-law's. It was a fake one Michael had commissioned from his lawyer. In it, Elizabeth left all her assets, including the town property and the money Michael suspected she had, to her only son. What chilled my blood was the date on the document. On that day, my mother-in-law was in a deep coma in the hospital, connected to machines. How could a person in a coma get up and sign a will? The signature was a shaky scrawl, but when compared to old letters from my mother-in-law, the forgery was obvious. Michael had guided her hand, or worse, he had faked the consent of a dying woman to legitimize his greed. Tears of rage streamed down my cheeks. In his mother's final moments, while I was watching over her through the nights, he was busy plotting how to steal her last breath. Michael's lack of scruples had hit rock bottom. I photographed every page and sent a copy to my own lawyer. "This is proof of forgery and fraud. I want to prepare a lawsuit, not just to defend myself, but to put him in jail if he dares to bother me again." My lawyer responded immediately. "The evidence is irrefutable. With this and the contents of the flash drive, he has no escape. The law will not let such a soulless being go unpunished." Michael came looking for me one afternoon, but this time he was not alone. He was accompanied by a middle-aged man with gold-rimmed glasses and a leather briefcase, but with a shrewd, shifty look. They pounded on the door. I opened it, and before I could say anything, Michael barged in aggressively. He pointed a finger at me, hissing, "You are very clever, Sophia. You tricked me into signing that damned agreement. Do you think you are going to get away with the old woman's $150,000 so easily? I have already checked the information on the savings account." The other man, his lawyer, adjusted his glasses. "Good afternoon. I am Mr. Perez's legal representative. My client alleges that he was deceived and coerced into signing the asset division agreement. We request its annulment and a new division of the inheritance." I smiled bitterly and invited them to sit, not offering them any water. Coerced? He is a grown man in his right mind who signed with his own hand before a judge. Now that he sees the money, he wants to back out. Michael slammed his fist on the table. "What game are you playing? If you do not share the money, I will post on social media that you had lovers and abused my mother to death. I will get you fired. I will make it so you can never get back on your feet." He started showing me screenshots of manipulated messages, where innocent conversations with coworkers were twisted into innuendos, and my complaints of exhaustion were turned into curses, wishing for his mother's death. Michael's depravity surpassed my imagination. I no longer felt anger, just a deep disgust. The man I had shared my life with was a demon willing to trample on his ex-wife's honor and his mother's memory for money. Silently, I activated the recorder I had prepared under the table. I let him talk, let him spew all his garbage so he could tie the noose around his own neck. When he was finished, I went to my room and got the laptop and all the documents I had gathered. I placed the small flash drive on the glass table. "Before you sue me for abuse or fraud, I suggest you watch this. Here is all the evidence of Mr. Fresh. Perez's embezzlement, his money laundering through betting, and most importantly, the proof that he forged my mother's will." I pushed the fake will toward them, and next to it, a copy of the medical report proving that on the date of the signature, my mother-in-law was in a deep coma, forgery of documents and fraud. The lawyer present here will know better than I how many years in prison that carries. And you, Mr. Perez, how do you think the CEO of your company will react when he receives the recording of you planning to embezzle from the company? Michael's face turned as white as a sheet. The pale lawyer picked up the medical report and looked at it in horror. He realized he had gotten involved in a serious criminal case. Mr. Perez, you did not tell me any of this. He quickly gathered his things. This has signs of a felony. I cannot participate. I have to protect my license. The lawyer rushed out, leaving Michael alone, cowering like a cornered rat. His arrogance had vanished, leaving only fear. "What are you going to do, Sophia?" he stammered. "Are you going to send me to prison?" After everything, we were husband and wife. I looked at him without a shred of compassion. Husband and wife, that relationship died the day you abandoned your mother to go with your mistress. You have two options. Either you disappear from my life forever and never open your mouth again, or I send all of this to the police right now. Michael staggered to his feet. He knew if I spoke, his life was over. He would not only lose his job and reputation, but prison was waiting for him. He headed for the door, defeated. But before he left, I decided to give him one last gift, a truth that would destroy his last hope. Oh, one more thing. Do you dream of a house and kids with your mistress, Natalie? Let me tell you, the pregnancy was fake. She was never pregnant. Michael stopped dead, turning with wild eyes. What are you saying? You are making it up to separate us. Why would I make anything up about a broke man like you? I shrugged. She was the one who came to me. She sold me all this evidence to get money to run away from you. She said since you have nothing left, she had to escape as soon as possible. Michael was petrified. The news was like a punch to the gut. He had lost everything for that woman: mother, wife, money, honor, and now even an imaginary child and the mistress he was supporting. He let out a cry of pain, clutching his head. His desperate scream echoed down the hallway. He stumbled outside and collapsed onto the ground. I closed the door, separating my world from his madness. I slid down to the floor, exhausted. I did not feel the euphoria of victory, only an infinite weariness. I had won the legal battle, but the price was scars on my soul and a broken faith in people. Outside, night was falling, but I knew the sun would rise tomorrow. I had to get up and start building a new life. Shortly after, a lawyer named Mr. Miller contacted me. He was my mother-in-law's secret legal representative. He revealed that Elizabeth, suspecting her son's nature, had drafted a second will. In addition to what I already knew, she owned a priceless ground-floor apartment on the Upper West Side of Manhattan, inherited from her parents. Its value exceeded $500,000. The will stipulated that the apartment would be exclusively mine if Michael proved to be a bad son or if we divorced due to his fault. Elizabeth had foreseen my vulnerability and had left me this protective shield. I cried with gratitude. My mother-in-law's love went beyond any blood ties. I moved into the Manhattan apartment. One stormy night, Natalie appeared at my door, her face bruised. Michael knows about the apartment. He has gone crazy. He says he is going to kill you. That same night, Michael forced his way in, armed with a knife. Where is my money? That apartment is mine. As he lunged at me, I sprayed his face with pepper spray. Just then, the police, whom I had already alerted, burst in and arrested him. His madness led him straight to prison, the inevitable end for a life of greed and betrayal. Michael was sentenced to 7 years in prison for multiple felonies. I never saw him again. With the inheritance money, I opened a small bookstore cafe on the ground floor of the apartment and named it Elizabeth's Legacy. It became a haven of peace, a place where I began to heal. One sunny afternoon, a man walked into the bookstore. He smiled, and his smile was as warm as the autumn sun. I smiled back, feeling a calm I had not experienced in a long time. The past was locked behind prison bars, and the future was opening up before me, with the scent of new paper and the golden light of a new beginning. Life is sometimes fair. Those who sow the wind reap the whirlwind, and those who keep a pure heart, in the end, find